I picked up this frame at the thrift store for a couple dollars. I just love the frame itself. We're not going to touch that. I'm going to leave it as be, but we're going to put a really nice reverse decoupage in the middle and use that Mirror Effect spray paint. It turns out fantastic. I'll put a link down below in the description for that spray paint. If you've never tried it before, you can check it out. I've taken the frame apart because we don't need this right now while we work on it. I'm going to put this aside. We'll put it back together when it's all finished. And the back also. I just want to have this glass piece. You want to make sure your glass is nice and clean. So I just have some Windex and I'm going to clean it up. I'm going to custom make my own napkin with one of my graphics. I've just got one ply of a white napkin and I've pressed it so I can get all the wrinkles out of it. And then I'm going to take a piece of computer paper because we're going to put that napkin on the paper. I have a full tutorial of how to custom make your own napkins. I'll put that link down below in the description if you want a real thorough tutorial. Just using some crafter's tape, and I'm gonna press it down right in the middle of that napkin and then trim off the edges. I want to measure my glass to see how big of an image I want to print off. I think I'm going to do probably about 5 inches by 6.5 inches. So that's what size I'm going to make my graphic. It's all printed out and now I'm going to cut it to the size that I need. I've taken the napkin off the piece of paper and I've put it on a plastic sleeve. We want to make the outside of the napkin look kind of ragged, so we're going to work away at that right now. To make the edge look ragged, I just like to use a paintbrush and just go along where you think you want it to be ragged. Just dampening it. Now, if you have a really stiff paintbrush, you can go along and just remove that edge. I find it's easier if I just use my scissors. Got to be really careful because you don't want to tear that napkin, but I'll just take my scissors along that edge where it's wet and get rid of all that extra napkin, and it leaves a really ragged edge. It'll blend in much nicer on your project. We have a ragged edge now all around the sides. I'm going to set it aside and we're going to let it dry. Now we're ready to start prepping the glass. I've just taken that plastic sheet with a napkin and I've laid it down, and I'm going to position the glass exactly where I want that graphic. You can use your ruler if you want to have it exactly lined up. This is going to be really rustic, so it doesn't have to be perfect. I have a dry erase marker and I'm just going to outline where that graphic is. So when we prep our glass, we know where that graphic is going to lay on it. We're going to lift that up, take the napkin off, flip our glass over, and we're ready to prep it. We want our piece of glass to look old and antique and then eventually have a mirror effect on it. I'm going to use some of my acrylic paint in burnt umber. It's just a dark brown color, and we're just going to splatter a little bit on that glass, not too much, just in the corners, just so it gives that little fleck. This is not anything that is an actual technique. It's just something that you can just play around with. And everyone is going to turn out a little bit different. There, I just added just a little bit. I want to age a little bit of the corners. I have some black chalk paint and a little sponge. I'm just going to very lightly just sponge around those corners. Just a little bit. You don't want it too thick. And I think I'll add a little bit of the brown just to give it kind of a sepia look. Just really lightly. We're trying to make this look as natural as we can. And because I have a little bit of gold in the frame, I'm going to use a little bit of gold, spun gold acrylic paint, and just sponge on just a little tiny bit just to bring out some of that gold. Now I want to add a little bit of detail. I have this stencil and I'm just going to lay it just in different spots around the glass. I've got some black chalk paint. You don't want very much, just a little bit. Place your stencil where I want it, and I'm just gonna lightly sponge. And this just gives it a really nice detail on the glass. We know where the outline of our graphic is going to be because we have our dry erase marker on the other side. I just want to do a little bit of an edge, maybe with some black and brown, and just go all around that edge. So when we do decoupage, it'll look like it's aged. You don't want to be too aggressive. You want to make it look naturally aged. You don't want big blotches of paint. I'm just using a stencil brush just to pounce it on. And you can layer up a couple different colors. I can go back and do a little bit of that gold. Add a little bit of black until you get your desired effect. We now want to set this aside and let it dry completely. Before we decoupage, I want to age this a little bit. I'm just going to take my stencil brush and just flick a little bit of color just so it ages it. Not too much, just to make it look like it's not that stark white. And then I'm just going to take the stencil brush and just pounce along the edge just a little bit, just to add a little bit of color. We're trying to get that antique paper look. Perfect. We are now ready to decoupage. This is the painted side. The other side is the side that we have that dry erase on. That's going to be cleaned off after. You're going to take your graphic and lay it down where it's going to be positioned from that dry erase. I found the best way to decoupage this is to lay it where you want it and then brush on your Mod Podge. Now you don't have to worry about it being cloudy. It will dry clear. And just go slow in small sections and just decoupage that napkin down. I always like to work from the inside out, and that will get rid of any bubbles that might come up or any wrinkles. If you're finding you're having a hard time with it bubbling, you can get a little piece of saran wrap and dab it, and it'll help you along. And you don't need very much, just enough to stick it to that glass. So I'm just going to work away at decoupaging this down. I've got it all decoupaged down. I just have the plastic baggie, same as saran wrap, and I'm just pressing it. I'm embracing, if there's a few little wrinkles in this, I'm embracing it because we want that vintage look. So that's okay, it doesn't have to be perfect. And I've got it all smoothed out really well, exactly where we want it. Now we're gonna set this aside, let it dry completely. This is all completely dried. Now, because the napkin has kind of gone translucent, we want to put a little bit of paint on the back of it. I'm just using my sponge and a little bit of white paint, and we're just going to sponge on around where that napkin is. Not too much, and you can do it thicker in some places and thinner in others. It's all about creating that antiqued look. And just sponge over the whole napkin. We're going to set this aside and let this step dry. Everything is completely dry. We're now going to use our Mirror Effect spray paint, and I'm also going to use some diluted vinegar. I have 2 parts water to 1 part vinegar, and that's going to be misted on after we spray the Mirror Effect. Now, when you spray this on, you don't need to spray it on your middle part. You only have to spray it around the outside. This is really expensive. This actually cost me $25 Canadian. So you don't want to use any more than you have to. I'm just going to use it sparingly around the outside. Then we're going to spritz it with the vinegar and then dab it up. I'm just gonna let this just dry for a couple minutes, and then I'm gonna take some Kleenex and just dab up that little bit of where that vinegar spray went. It's been a couple minutes, and you're just gonna dab up and down, and that just gives that aged mirror look. And it doesn't take very much off, it just kind of blots it. Now you can flip it over and you can check it. I think this needs another coat, so I'm just going to give it another little spritz. While we're waiting for the mirror effect to dry, I'm going to paint the back of the picture frame black. I'm just using some black latex paint. Put everything all together. It turned out fantastic. See the mirroring with the stencils. Perfect graphic for it. I love the way that it turns out. So grab some of the Mirror Effect spray paint if you haven't gotten any, and give this technique a try. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video. And if you love this video, you'll probably really love the next one. Take care.